Got some cap space news for you, and I got some of the interviews from our free agents. Let's get into this. What is up, Finn fans? If you can tell by the title, our free agents came. They met with the media. They did it through Skype. They did it through social media, video type stuff like this. And essentially, they gave us some tidbits. You can check that out on the Miami Dolphins YouTube channel, the full interviews and the full stuff. I just got some tidbits and some things that kind of resonated with me and some things that I just want to talk about with you guys that some of these free agents said. I don't have all 10, but I got a good amount of them. And the first thing I want to talk about is the cap space. The cap space has completely changed, and this talking about the cap space is kind of comment of the day, because I have a lot of you guys asking me questions about things, and that's what this cap space talk is going to be about. I'm going to talk about how much money the Miami Dolphins have left, how surprising how little they have left. But before we get into that, you guys know it's the weekend, and on the weekend, I give you guys some trivia. So who started more career games than anyone else on the interior of the Dolphins defensive line? So who started the most games in the Miami Dolphins history on the interior of the defensive line? I'll let you guys comment below. And right before I get into my normal spiel, right after the interviews, I will tell you guys the answer to that trivia question. So let's talk about cap space real quick. Let's talk about cap space. Barry Jackson came out with an article yesterday, March 27th, day that I'm essentially recording this for you, talking about how the cap space actually has changed. And it has changed drastically to the point where a lot of people are like, wait, how much money does the Miami Dolphins have? So as of right now, being for you guys March 28th, for me recording this March 27th, the Miami Dolphins have $24.6 million in cap space. You might be asking yourself, wait a second, why? I did the math and they have this much, or I went on Spot Track, or I went on Over the Cap, or I went here and it says they have about 33, 34, 37, whatever million. The official amount that the Miami Dolphins have, this is from the NFLPA, who have agreed and signed off, yes, this is how much the Dolphins have after some changes that I will talk about, is $24.6 million. Now, why is it so drastic? Why did it pretty much go down about $10 million from the last time you checked, regardless of the site you used or who you heard it from, or if your grandmother told you these things, why did it go 10 million? It's because the Dolphins decided what they're going to do is they're going to have the roster bonuses and everything for certain players like Byron Jones, Kyle Van Noy, be very big this year. They're going to be a huge chunk this year. So in 2021 and 2022, the cap hit and the size of their contract isn't so ginormous. You might be asking yourself, well, what does that mean? That means if the cap space goes up to $240 million, which everyone's predicting because they predicted how much the cap space went up this year, and it was a big jump this year, the Miami Dolphins next year would have $80 million in cap space. That's without re-signing anybody. That's just, we don't even try Baker. We don't try McMillan. We don't try to re-sign anybody. Preston Williams, you name them. We don't do anything. We go into the offseason and then decide to re-sign players. $80 million in cap space next year because of eating a chunk of it now. So again, you look at it now, if the Miami Dolphins were to draft all 14 draft picks, they're not. No one expects them to. No one thinks they're going to. The Dolphins are even like, if you think we are, it makes no sense for us to draft all 14 draft picks. It would be $16 million to sign those drafted players. I honestly think they'll probably sign about 9 or 10. So you could probably cut that down to about $9 million. But just for poops and giggles or whatever you want to say, again, I'm trying to keep this PG. If they did sign all 14 draft picks, that's $16 million. And then you have $2 million that they have to sign to the practice squad, which makes that going into the season of 2020, the Miami Dolphins will have $7 million in cap space. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, Doug, for one, wow, we'll have $7 million. Yes, but again, next year we'll have $80 million. So they're doing it smart. They're playing it smart. The other thing you might be saying is, well, why are you telling us this? Why are you giving us this update? And why are you using this as comment of the day? I'm using this in the very beginning of the video as comment of the day because I'm constantly hearing, hey, should the Dolphins get Trent Williams? Hey, should the Dolphins sign Cam Newton? Hey, what about this guy? Hey, what about that? And I'm looking, before I saw this, and even before, when I was like, we got about 34 million. Again, it's about 16 million. And I'm always thinking to myself, they probably want to carry over about 15 million. I look at some of these free agents out there and I'm like, the Dolphins are done with free agency. They are absolutely done. And after looking at them literally having 7 million in cap, maybe even 10 million in cap if they don't sign all 14, which they're not gonna, they don't have any money to trade for Trent Williams and give him the contract he wants, sign Cam Newton. Jameis Winston is another name I've heard out there from some people. Hey, we should go after Jameis Winston on some Facebook pages. The Dolphins are done. When it comes to free agency, when it comes to signing players, the Dolphins are done. Unless they cut Albert Wilson, who is due $9.5 million, and it's not fully guaranteed. So they can cut him, and all of a sudden 9.5 is back in the cap space. And you look at it, they'll have about 16.5 million, again, if they sign all 14 draft picks, which they're not doing. And the reason they're waiting on Albert Wilson is, one, there's no rush. His contract is not guaranteed, so they can cut him whenever, however, no rush. Also, they kind of like the way he played towards the end of the season. That's kind of why they're keeping him on. And they also don't feel like they need the cap space. That's also why they did what they did of, we're going to front load their contract this year with us having about 100 million in cap space, because the Dolphins don't feel like they need the cap space right now. They got all these draft picks to fill the rest of the holes that they need. So they're good. They said they're done. They're not going to do it anymore. So again, Miami Dolphins have $24.6 million in cap space right now. If they sign 14 draft picks, it's $16 million. Practice squad is $2 million. Leaves them at $7 million going into the season. I don't expect it to happen. Look for them to have about $10 million to go into the season. They're done when it comes to free agency. So no, they're not going after Trent Williams. No, they're not going after Cam Newton. No, they're not going after Jameis Winston. They're done. They're done. On to the draft. And that's where my mindset's going. But before we talk about draft stuff, because I already did my quarterback prospects video, be sure to go back and check it out. Be sure. Let's hear what the free agents had to say. Now, like I said, the free agents had one-on-one Skype calls with the media, talk about that stuff. Now, I don't have everything that they talked about, but I have some tidbits. Like, Roberts, I got like one thing he said. Karras, I got maybe two things he said. Jones, I got a few things he said. Howard, I only got one thing. Agba, here and there. It's just things that popped out on me and things that I want to talk about, because there was this perception going into this year that no one's going to want to sign with the Miami Dolphins. You're going to have to overpay for these players to get them to sign for the Miami Dolphins. Do you think they overpaid? Maybe Eric Flowers, they overpaid a little bit, but I don't think they really overpaid for anyone else. Not by much. So let's, Roberts, the linebacker we picked up, he said not being able to do free agent visits was not a factor because he liked Brian Flores and he liked the program he ran. So he felt, I like this guy. I don't need to visit with these guys. I hear that the Miami Dolphins want to sign him. I had a phone call with Brian Flores. He wants to sign me. Cool. Let me sign the paper. I see what you've done in 2019, and I like it, and I like what you're running. I'll play for you. You're going to hear a lot of these free agents talk about Brian Flores, talk about how they liked what he ran, how he ran his team, how competitive he is. And this is even some guys that weren't playing with him, like Kyle Van Noy, are saying these things. So you think to yourself, those 5 wins kind of got us 10 free agents. Then Ted Karras came out. He said he's still working out. He said his neighbor has like a workout bar and all that stuff. He's running. He's doing his thing. He's being productive. He's trying to stay healthy. He said playing center against Brian Flores' defense with the New England Patriots at practice was hard, was tough. He's got the big physical guys in the middle doing their thing, wreaking havoc. And he said that it's hard, which is great. When it comes to practice, I want the offense and defensive line to not necessarily be at a standstill, because it's not always going to be at a standstill, but I want it to be aggressive. I want these guys to win, and just be hard. Because then when you're playing inferior teams or teams that don't have as good as an offensive line or defensive line, then you're like, oh, wow, this was harder going against my own defense. And then you play better. You're more productive. Then they talk to, again, there's more, but you can go on the Dolphins YouTube channel, watch the full video. I can't pop up videos because then I've already gotten demonetized one of my videos when I was reacting to the top Miami Dolphin plays. So I'm not messing around with that again. Then we have Byron Jones, right? He said he wants to be the catalyst for the culture that is being built in this Miami Dolphins organization. That catalyst of a team player, that catalyst of, TNT wall, disciplined, takes no talent. He wants to be the catalyst of it. He kind of sees himself coming in as a vet. This is his 6th year, and he kind of sees himself coming in as that, and he's taking on that role, and he's embracing it. Great to hear. It's probably one of the reasons the Dolphins went hard after him. He said he loves to play man-to-man coverage, and he loves the competition of playing that type of coverage and playing one-on-one with a guy. He says that's probably one of the biggest reasons he liked going from safety to corner and why he thinks it was so successful for him. He talks about Brian Flores. He says Flores is a young coach, a lot of intensity, and he heard great things around the league. So he was asking around the league about Brian Flores, hey, they're interested in me. What do you guys think? Heard nothing but great things around the league. Again, people are talking about Brian Flores. People are talking about how well he has done. Yes, I understand. A lot of you guys, if we would have lost, 4 of those 5 games, we'd be in the perfect position to take who we want at number 1. But look at what he instilled. Look at what he put out in the universe, put out into the league. He can win with nothing, and people want to come and play for that guy and run through a wall for that guy because he showed how much he can do. He talks about practicing. He talks about that he doesn't care if it's Super Bowl week. He doesn't care if it is the Pro Bowl. He doesn't care if it's preseason. He practices like it is Super Bowl week every week. And for a fact, Brian Flores will absolutely love that. And again, that's probably why they went hard for him. Then he had this quote. When he talks about the direction of the next team, he wants to be playing for an up-and-coming team. So he thought to himself, going from the Cowboys, the next team I want to go for, the direction that the team is going in is important to me. And he sees the Miami Dolphins as an up-and-coming team. He says that excites me to see other guys that they collected in free agency, the guys they already have, and the guys they're going to draft excites him. He wants to play here. And that is something huge. I heard all off season. I heard towards the end of the year when I was talking about, the Miami Dolphins have 14 draft picks. The Miami Dolphins are going to have about $100 million in cap space. I kept hearing, but who's going to want to play for the Dolphins? The Dolphins won 5 games. The Dolphins suck. The Dolphins had the worst rushing. I heard this from some Dolphin fans. The Dolphins have the worst rushing team. The Dolphins can't stop the run. It's the same thing that happened to the Cleveland Browns, where all of a sudden you start seeing free agents, with the Cleveland Browns a little bit more, you had the draft picks that brought the Cleveland Browns, the free agents in, whereas with the Dolphins, it's more of the head coach and the promise he has and him doing something with nothing. And all of a sudden the people are like, I want to play for that guy. I want to play for this team. This team looks like they're going to build something. Look at these free agents. Look at what they got, all these draft picks. You'll be surprised how much having draft picks will really entice free agents to come play for you because of how much promise you have. And that's probably that's a few of the things that brought Byron Jones here. And then he joked about not having enough interceptions, which if you bring that up, that he has no interceptions, you got to stop watching the ball, because then you probably also think that certain players that don't get sacks or certain players that you got to stop watching the ball. If you think that Byron Jones not only having a couple interceptions is bad, because he has 43 career pass breakups. It's pretty good. But he made the joke that, he's got to be more proactive at getting after the ball. Hey, man, if you can keep doing what you're doing and stop players from catching the ball, I'm cool with that. Real quick with Howard, the running back we picked up, he said he's a physical runner. And he wants to hit them before they hit him. And that, I'm not comparing, but that was one of the things I loved from Ricky Williams. How he would run, and he'd run up that sideline. And a lot of times running backs would kind of just dip out and not take a big hit, especially if you see the safety coming down and it's going to crack you. Ricky would just pop you. And if he could hit you right before he goes out, he'd do it. He'd always give you a little shove, and I loved it. And I love that physicality. That's probably what the Dolphins are trying to do. Being that we got Gaskins and Laird, bring in Howard, who's more of a big physical back, and then maybe even draft like Taylor, Swift, some of those guys. Again, that video is probably going to come out Monday or Tuesday, where I talk about the running backs in the draft. And then they talk to Emmanuel Agba, and he says at the start of free agency, the Finns went hard after him. Really hard. He said he had other teams interested in him, but he wanted to play for Brian Flores. Now, is this the players just kissing their new head coach's ass and trying to get on their good side? That's a possibility, but I'm not surprised. Because there's a lot of people like Ted Karras. Ted Karras, the New England Patriots were going to offer him a 2-year deal. He turned it down to go to Miami for a 1-year deal. Why? Because he wants to play for Brian Flores. Emmanuel Agba probably could have got more money from another team. He said other teams were going after him hard. But he wanted to play for the Dolphins because the Dolphins had Brian Flores, had that young up-and-coming coach that people want to play for. Then he talked about, like I said, when I broke down my grades for the free agency, even when I talked about him when he first signed, that he tore his pec in November. He said he's been cleared for on-field activities for a month now. So there's no worries, no needs about that. Then they talked to Kyle Van Noy, and he said you would wish to play for Brian Flores if you played football. So if you played football, Brian Flores is the type of head coach you want to play for. He also had a story to say. It was a bad practice in December in 2018. It's cold. People are cranky. Flores pulls Van Noy and Hightower off the sideline and tells them, we aren't just out here just to be out here. We're trying to get things done. Then that resonates to the other teams in the meeting. Again, it's another situation of Brian Flores helping getting free agents. Brian Flores' coaching style, his past, the players talking to each other, and how this man can make this team will to work for him, work hard, run through a wall from him. Love it. Love every minute of it. And then I got 2 little things from Shaq Lawson. He talks about Marion Hobby, who is now with the Dolphins coaching staff, and he says he developed him into the player he is. That's probably another reason he came to Miami. And they says he takes pride. He takes pride in not letting people through his gap, which please help us with our run defense, because our run defense was complete poopy. But literally listening to these guys talk, again, if you want to watch the whole interviews and stuff, it's on the Miami Dolphins YouTube channel. Listen to them talk and listen to them, talking about, how excited they are about this team, the youth of this team, the promise of this team, the promise of the head coach, and all that stuff. It gets you pumped up. Now, am I thinking we're going to win the division, all that stuff? No. But it gets you pumped up because it makes you feel like you might have found that coach. Am I saying we did? Only time will tell, because I'm tired of having a first good year and then all of a sudden they fall over. Not saying Brian Flores had a good year his first year, but to win 5 games out of nothing kind of gives you a little bit of hope. But listening to these free agents talk, it shows you that, yeah, we had a horrible team last year. Why would free agents want to come here? Because the coach won 5 games with a horrible team and won against 2 division winners. So I'm very excited. I like what they had to say. Be sure to comment below. Let me know what you guys think about the cap space. What do you guys think about that? Only going to have about $10 million. Do you like that they front-loaded it? So for 2021 and 2022, they'll have more money to make more moves, to do more things, to solidify this team. They're doing this smart. Also, comment below. Let me know what you think about what these free agents had to say. If you went and watched the whole video, let me know what you had to say about the whole thing. And Brian Flores and the future and the promise of this team. Be sure to comment below. Before I get to my spiel, the answer to the trivia question, which was who started more career games than anyone else on the interior of the Dolphins defensive line? It is Tim Bowens. He opened 155 games at defensive tackle from 1994 to 2004. I grew up watching Tim Bowens. I loved Tim Bowens on that defense. Him and Jason Taylor, and at one point, Adwala Goonlier. Loved it. Loved watching Tim Bowens. But be sure to follow me on Twitter, guys. I talk to a ton of you guys on Twitter. Also, when news breaks and when these guys were doing their interviews, I was kind of retweeting and give you guys my thoughts on some of their things that they were saying that really resonated with me. Talk about it now. So be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Also, check out the Bit Boys. Got some new games coming out. Resident Evil's coming out next week. I'm going to be playing that, and we'll be playing that on the channel. So be sure to go over, check that out. Hit the subscribe button. If you like the games, don't feel like you need to. Other than that, give this video a thumbs up, fellas. It's promising. I love that these free agents and these players are talking so well about the coach. Now, is that, like I said, is that because of, hey, they want to kiss his ass? Maybe. But it still feels good. And it still feels good that these free agents would want to come here to play for this coach. Maybe we found that coach. Maybe we didn't. Also, give the video a thumbs up because you like the content. Check out DolphinsTalk.com. Great site, podcast, which I've been on a few of, beat writers, YouTubers. Go over, check it out. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. If you hit the bell and you're subscribed, you'll see the next video coming out where I break down the top running back prospects in the 2020 draft. That's my next one. That'll come out Monday. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell so you can see that as soon as it comes out. And then next weekend, I'm going live Saturday. So if you guys want to hang out with me live Saturday, we could chat some more. Be sure to subscribe. Other than that, I will see you guys Monday with my draft prospects videos for the running backs. But like usual, stay classy. Fins up.